My marriage. I watched through the pharmacy window as my husband loaded the last box into her car. Not our car. Her car. A silver BMW I'd never seen before. Parked in my driveway at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. I'd left work early. Migraine, I told my tech. But really, I just knew. The way you know, when you reach for your phone in your pocket, and it's not there. That instant, sickening certainty. My badge still hung around my neck when I pulled into our street. Brandon stood on our front porch, hands in his pockets, watching a woman I'd never met arrange boxes in that BMW. She wore what I can only describe as resort casual. White linen pants, gold sandals, oversized sunglasses despite the overcast sky. She moved like she owned the place. Confident. Unhurried. I parked behind her car, blocking it in. Brandon saw me and his face did something strange. Not guilt. Not even surprise. More like inconvenience. Like I'd shown up early to a surprise party and ruined the timing. Jess. He walked down the porch steps. We need to talk. The woman stopped arranging boxes and turned. She didn't lower her sunglasses. I got out of my car slowly. My legs felt disconnected from my body, like I was operating them remotely. Who is that? That's Tiffany. He said it like I should know. Like she was the mail carrier or our insurance agent. She's been helping me with some things. What things? Tiffany finally spoke. Her voice was smooth, practiced. Brandon and I have been working together. At the dealership. She smiled. Not apologetic. Not embarrassed. Just pleasant. We're actually business partners now. I looked at the boxes in her car. Then at Brandon. Business partners. I was going to tell you. Brandon ran his hand through his hair. A tell. He always did that when he was lying. Things have been changing. At work. In my life. I've been trying to figure out how to explain it. Explain what? He exhaled. I'm moving out. Tiffany and I are together. We're starting fresh. New business venture. New life. It's better this way. Trust me. My hands started shaking, so I put them in my pockets. You're leaving me for your sales associate. Regional manager now, Tiffany corrected, still pleasant. I've been running the operations side for the last 8 months. 8 months. I'd been working doubles at the hospital while she'd been running his business. While they'd been planning this. The house, I said quietly. Brandon shifted his weight. We need to sell it, split the equity. It's the fair thing. Fair. You'll get your half. Tiffany's already talked to a realtor. Great market right now. We could list next week. I watched Tiffany close the BMW's trunk. She checked her phone, typed something, smiled at the screen. My husband's belongings were in her car. His clothes. His life. She'd packed him up like he was a college kid moving into a dorm. Something in my chest went very cold and very still. I pulled out my phone and dialed. One number. My most recent call. Jesse? My dad's voice. Calm. Always calm. Dad. Can you come to the house? Are you all right? No. Can you come now? 15 minutes. I hung up. Brandon frowned. Who was that? My father. Why did you call Tom? He sounded annoyed now. This is between us. We're adults. We don't need your dad involved in our divorce. Oh, we're divorced now? We will be. I filed yesterday. You'll get the papers this week. Tiffany walked back to the porch, pulled out a key, and unlocked my front door. Our front door. She went inside like she belonged there. I stared at Brandon. She has a key. I gave her one. She's been helping me sort through things, figure out what to take, what to leave. She's very organized. I'm sure she is. Don't be like that. He actually looked hurt. You're making this harder than it needs to be. We grew apart, Jess. It happens. People change. I changed. You're still the same person I married 10 years ago. And that's great for you, but I need more. Tiffany gets that. She's ambitious. Driven. She works in car sales. She's an entrepreneur. She's got vision. We're expanding the business. Opening 2 new locations. She's bringing in investors. With what capital? He hesitated. That's being finalized. Mrs. Hendricks from next door was walking her Pomeranian. She slowed down, pretending to let the dog sniff our mailbox. Her phone was definitely out. Brandon noticed. Can we not do this in the street? You're the one moving out in the middle of the day. I'm being efficient. Tiffany thought it was better to handle things quickly. Rip off the band-aid. Tiffany's thought of everything. She has, actually. He crossed his arms. She's good at planning. Details. She's already set up a new apartment for us. Downtown loft. Great space. You should see it. I heard a car engine. Not my dad yet. Too soon. A black Audi pulled up across the street and parked. A woman got out. 50s, maybe. Business suit. She looked at Tiffany's BMW, then at our house, then at me. She stayed by her car, phone to her ear. Brandon didn't notice her. Look, I know this is hard. But we're doing this the right way. Legal. Clean. You keep the house until it sells, I take my portion of the business. We split everything else 50-50. Tiffany's really been helpful working out the details. I bet. Tiffany came back out carrying a framed photo. My wedding photo. She walked it to the BMW, opened the passenger door, and set it face down on the seat. Something must have shown on my face because Brandon stepped closer. Jess. Don't make this ugly. Please. We had good years. Let's remember those and move forward like adults. Adults. Yes. Mature. Reasonable. Tiffany's already spoken to her attorney about keeping this amicable. She has an attorney. A good one. Very experienced with business dissolution and asset division. He's already drawn up a preliminary separation agreement. Once your lawyer reviews it, we can move forward. My dad's truck appeared at the end of the street. Navy blue F-150. He drove exactly the speed limit, signaled properly, parked perfectly at the curb. Brandon saw him and groaned. Jesus Christ. What's he going to do? Give me a lecture about honor and commitment? My dad got out of his truck. He's 63 now, retired 5 years, but he still moves like he's about to testify in federal court. Measured. Purposeful. He wore jeans and a button-down shirt. Reading glasses hanging from a cord around his neck. He looked at me first. You okay, honey? I nodded. He looked at Brandon. Brandon, Tom. This really isn't your business. My daughter called me. That makes it my business. He turned to Tiffany, who'd stopped on the porch. And you are? She smiled. Confident. Tiffany Morrison. I'm Brandon's partner. Business partner. Brandon added quickly. My dad's expression didn't change. Miss Morrison. I'm Tom Caldwell. Something flickered across her face. Just for a second. But she recovered. Nice to meet you, Mr. Caldwell. I doubt that. He looked back at Brandon. You filed for divorce yesterday? That's right. We're handling it professionally. Splitting everything fair and square. Including the dealership. Brandon straightened up. The dealership is mine. I built it. Jessica has no claim to it. Interesting. My dad pulled a folder from under his arm. Leather portfolio. The same one he'd carried to trials for 30 years. Because I have documents here that suggest otherwise. What documents? Business incorporation papers. Tax filings. Loan agreements. He opened the folder. It's fascinating reading. Really. Especially the part about capital investment and silent partnerships. Brandon's face changed. What are you talking about? When you opened Midwest Premier Motors 12 years ago, where did the initial capital come from? I took out a business loan. You took out $40,000. You needed $220,000 total. Where did the other $180,000 come from? Silence. My dad continued, his voice even. I have here a promissory note, signed by you, dated March 2013. You borrowed $180,000 from me. The terms were specific. The loan would convert to a 40% equity stake in the business once it became profitable, which it did. In 2015, that was a family loan, Brandon said, but his voice had lost its confidence. Between us, it was a documented business investment. I have the canceled checks. The notarized agreements. The equity documents that you signed acknowledging my ownership stake. He pulled out a paper. This is your signature, isn't it? Brandon stared at it. You never enforced that. You never came to meetings. You never asked for distributions. I trusted you to run the business. I trusted you to be honest with my daughter. Clearly that was a mistake. Tiffany came down off the porch. Mr. Caldwell, I don't know what Brandon told you, but he has full ownership of that dealership. I've seen the corporate documents. Have you? My dad looked at her directly. What documents exactly? The LLC registration. The articles of organization. Brandon is listed as sole member. Those documents were filed incorrectly. I have an amended filing from 2015 that lists my ownership stake. It was recorded with the state. It's public record. Brandon's jaw tightened. You can't just show up and claim you own part of my business. I'm not claiming it. I own it. 40%. And as a minority shareholder, I have rights, including the right to object to any transfer of ownership or sale of assets without my approval. He pulled out another paper. This is the operating agreement you signed. Section 7, subsection C. Any sale, transfer or pledge of membership interests requires unanimous approval of all members. Tiffany crossed her arms. Brandon. What is he talking about? I don't know. This is ancient history. A handshake deal. It's not ancient, and it wasn't a handshake. My dad's voice got quieter, which somehow made it more intense. It was a legally binding agreement that you violated. You transferred 40% of the business to Miss Morrison 3 weeks ago. I have the filing. Brandon went pale. You pledged company assets as collateral for a personal loan. Specifically, a $300,000 loan from Morrison Capital Group. He looked at Tiffany. Would that be your company, Miss Morrison? She didn't answer. You used my investment, my ownership stake, as collateral for a loan without my knowledge or consent. That's fraud, Brandon. Commercial fraud. The woman across the street started walking toward us. She held up a badge as she approached. FBI. Agent Sarah Chen. Brandon looked like he might pass out. Agent Chen stopped next to my dad. Mr. Caldwell. Ma'am. She nodded to me, then looked at Tiffany. Tiffany Morrison. I need to ask you some questions regarding Morrison Capital Group and its lending practices. I don't have to answer anything without my attorney. That's your right. But we've been investigating your company for 8 months. Wire fraud. Securities fraud. Predatory lending targeting small business owners. She pulled out her own folder. We have testimony from 3 other men who borrowed from you. Each one was promised business expansion capital. Each one transferred ownership stakes in their companies to you. Each one defaulted on the loans, which were structured to be unrepayable and lost their businesses. Tiffany's pleasant expression finally cracked. This is harassment. This is an investigation. And your relationship with Mr. Caldwell here fits the pattern exactly. Romantic involvement, promises of business growth, loan with impossible terms, asset transfer. Brandon found his voice. Wait. What? Agent Chen looked at him almost sympathetically. Mr. Caldwell, when did Miss Morrison first approach you about expanding the business? About 9 months ago. She started as a sales associate, then we got close and she had all these ideas about growth potential. And when did she first suggest you might need capital investment? 6 months ago. She said her family had an investment fund. Morrison Capital Group isn't a family fund. It's a predatory lending operation. She targets profitable small businesses, builds relationships with the owners, offers them capital they don't need, and structures the loans to guarantee default. Then she seizes the assets. Brandon sat down on the porch steps. Oh my God. She's done this to 3 other men in the Midwest in the last 2 years. Car dealerships, specifically. You're her type. Successful, mid-sized operations. Owners who are proud of building something themselves and want to expand. She targets men going through personal issues. Midlife questioning. Relationship problems. I thought she loved me. She loves your business, Mr. Caldwell. Or she did. Before we found out about the minority ownership stake, Agent Chen looked at my dad. That's what protected him, actually. She couldn't fully seize the business because she didn't realize someone else owned 40%. That complicates liquidation. My dad closed his folder. I requested a federal investigation 3 months ago when I noticed the irregular filings. I spent 30 years as a federal prosecutor. I know what fraud looks like. I finally found my voice. You've known for 3 months? He looked at me. I've suspected longer. I've known for certain since the investigation started. I couldn't tell you without compromising the case. I'm sorry, honey. Tiffany backed toward her BMW. This is ridiculous. I haven't done anything illegal. You've falsified loan documents, Miss Morrison. You've engaged in wire fraud, bank fraud, and conspiracy to commit fraud. You're looking at 20 years federal time. Agent Chen stepped forward. Don't make this harder. 2 more cars pulled up. Federal agents. They moved with efficiency, no drama. One spoke quietly to Tiffany, reading her rights while another began photographing her car, the boxes, the scene. Mrs. Hendricks's Pomeranian was going crazy. Brandon sat on the steps with his head in his hands. I mortgaged the house. To pay back her initial loan. I mortgaged our house, Jess. My stomach dropped. When? Last month. She said it was temporary. Just to smooth out cash flow while we finalized the expansion funding. How much? $200,000. Home equity line of credit. Agent Chen overheard. That loan was also from Morrison Capital Group, Mr. Caldwell. Funneled through a shell company, you sign documents pledging your home as collateral against a debt that doesn't actually exist in traditional terms. It's another layer of her operation. My dad put his hand on my shoulder. The house is fine. It's in a trust. Your grandmother set it up when she died and left it to you. Brandon's name was added to the title, but the underlying trust ownership can't be mortgaged without the trustee's approval. You're the trustee. I am. I never approved that loan. Which means it's void. Brandon looked up. The house was in a trust? For 15 years. Your wife inherited it from her grandmother. I've been managing it as trustee. You've been living in a house you never actually owned. He paused. The irony isn't lost on me. An agent was talking to Tiffany by her car. She was still trying to maintain composure. But her hands were shaking now. She pulled out her phone and the agent took it from her. Evidence, he said calmly. Agent Chen turned back to us. Mr. Caldwell, you're not being charged with anything. You're a victim in this case. But we'll need your full cooperation. Documents, testimony, communications with Miss Morrison. Brandon nodded mutely. Mrs. Caldwell. She looked at me. I know this is difficult. If you need victim services, support resources, we can provide information. I just need to understand what happened. Your husband was targeted by a sophisticated fraud operation. Miss Morrison identifies vulnerable business owners, usually men in their 40s experiencing some kind of life crisis. She builds trust, romantic relationships in most cases, then leverages that relationship to gain access to their assets. She's very good at it. Without your father's involvement and his investigation, your husband would have lost his business, your home would be in jeopardy, and you'd be facing significant financial devastation. I looked at my dad. Really looked at him. The reading glasses, the careful folder. The way he'd shown up in exactly 15 minutes because he always kept his word. You've been protecting me. Every day of your life, honey. That's the job. Brandon stood up. Tom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I thought I was building something. I thought she was helping me. I thought he stopped. I thought I was smarter than this. Smart people get conned all the time. That's why con artists succeed. They don't target stupid people. They target proud ones. 2 agents were leading Tiffany to an unmarked car. She looked back once, caught my eye. No more pleasant smile. Just cold assessment. Calculating even now. Agent Chen handed me a card. We'll need to interview you at some point. Not today, but soon. You may have observed things without realizing their significance. Conversations. Documents. Behavior patterns. I took the card. More neighbors were out now, phones up. Mrs. Hendricks had moved closer, not even pretending to walk her dog anymore. My dad guided me toward his truck. Let's go somewhere quiet. You need coffee, real coffee, not hospital break room coffee. What about Brandon? He'll be fine. The agents need to talk to him. Get his statement. He's not being arrested. Yet, Agent Chen added. Depending on what we find about his knowledge of the fraudulent loans. But preliminarily, he appears to be a victim rather than a co-conspirator. Brandon looked at me. Jess. I know I don't have the right to ask, but... Don't, I said. Not now. Not today. My dad opened the passenger door of his truck. The interior smelled like coffee and leather and safety. I got in. As we drove away, I saw Agent Chen talking to Brandon. taking notes. I saw Tiffany in the back of the unmarked car. I saw my house, my grandmother's house, standing solid and real behind all the chaos. Dad. Yeah, honey. When did you know? About Brandon and Tiffany? He was quiet for a moment. Your mother called me 2 months ago. She'd run into Brandon at a restaurant downtown. He was with a woman. They were intimate, affectionate. Your mom didn't want to believe it, but she couldn't ignore it either. She asked me to look into it quietly. Mom knew? She suspected. She hated suspecting. But she loves you more than she hates conflict. He turned onto the highway. I started making inquiries. Business filings. Corporate documents. That's when I found the transfer to Morrison Capital Group. I recognized the pattern from cases I'd prosecuted. Shell companies, predatory lending. I called some people I knew at the bureau. You've been investigating my husband for 2 months. I've been protecting my daughter for 38 years. This was just more direct than usual. We drove in silence. The city blurred past. Gray sky. October trees losing their leaves. I felt so stupid, I said finally. Standing there watching him pack. Listening to him talk about being adults and moving forward. I felt like I was the one who'd failed somehow. You didn't fail. You got targeted by 2 people who are very good at what they do. Brandon, at being selfish. Tiffany at being a criminal. He mortgaged my house. He tried. The mortgage is invalid. We'll get it cleared, probably in the next few weeks once the investigation concludes. What happens to the dealership? That depends on what Brandon wants. If he can clean up the fraudulent agreements, pay back the legitimate debts, the business might survive. I own 40% regardless. We'll figure it out. You invested in his business because of me. I invested in his business because I love you. And because I wanted your marriage to succeed. I thought giving him capital would relieve some pressure, help him build something sustainable. He glanced at me. I was wrong about his character. But I'm not wrong about you. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Please. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. I love you. I made a mistake. I turned off my phone. Dad pulled into a coffee shop parking lot. Small place. Local. The kind with real mugs and baristas who remember regulars. Inside, it was warm and smelled like espresso and cinnamon. Dad ordered 2 coffees and a piece of apple pie to split. We sat in a corner booth. Mom's going to be furious, she missed this, I said. He smiled. She's at her book club. I'll call her after we talk. She wanted to come, but I told her you needed something different right now. What's different? Someone who's seen the worst of people professionally and still believes the best of you personally. The coffee came. Hot. Strong. Perfect. I don't know what to do next, I admitted. You don't have to know. Not today. Today you just need to exist. Tomorrow you can start figuring things out. Whether you want to divorce him. Whether you want to try to work through it. Whether you want to sell the house or keep it. Whether you want any part of the dealership. Or if you want me to buy him out. All of those decisions can wait. Can they? Yes. Because you're safe. Your home is protected. Your finances are separate from his business disaster. You have options. That's what I've been working to preserve. Your options. I wrapped my hands around the coffee mug. He said I haven't changed. That I'm the same person he married. Good. He meant it as a criticism. I know. He's wrong. Being consistent isn't the same as being stagnant. You've grown. You've built a career. You're respected at that hospital. You're reliable, which Brandon apparently interprets as boring. His loss, Tiffany, seemed exciting. Tiffany is going to federal prison. That's a different kind of exciting. He cut the pie precisely in half. You want to know something I learned in 30 years of prosecuting criminals? What? The most dangerous ones aren't the violent ones. They're the ones who make you feel special. The ones who study you, find your vulnerabilities and exploit them with precision. Tiffany Morrison studied Brandon. Found a man who felt unappreciated, who wanted to feel like he was still building something important, who was vulnerable to flattery and ambition. She gave him exactly what he needed to hear, and then she took everything. He was going to lose our house. Yes. And his business. And his self-respect. If I hadn't been watching. If your grandmother hadn't set up that trust. If Agent Chen's team hadn't been building their case. He pushed the pie toward me. Eat. Your blood sugar is probably crashing. I took a bite. Sweet and tart and grounding. I kept thinking I should cry, I said. Standing there in my own driveway, watching my marriage end, and I just felt cold. Empty. Is that normal? It's shock. The tears will come later. Or they won't. There's no right way to process betrayal. Were you angry? When you found out? Furious. Your mother had to talk me down from showing up at the dealership and confronting him immediately. But anger doesn't build a case. Evidence does, so I channeled it into making sure he couldn't hurt you worse than he already had. Thank you. You don't thank me for being your father. It's not transactional. It's permanent. My phone buzzed again. Still off, but the vibrations came through. More texts probably. Brandon spiraling. Panicking. Realizing what he'd done. He'll want another chance, Dad said. I know. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that I watched a woman pack up my husband's belongings in broad daylight. I'm thinking he gave her a key to my house. I'm thinking he mortgaged my home without telling me to pay back a loan from his mistress who was scamming him. I set down my fork. I'm thinking I deserve better than being someone's backup plan. You deserve everything. Always have. He's going to lose the business, isn't he? Even with your 40%. Probably. The fraud investigation will destroy customer trust. The publicity alone will kill sales. He'll be lucky to break even after paying back legitimate creditors. And you'll lose your investment. I'll lose money. I've lost money before. I'm not worried about it. I am. You worked hard for that, and I spent it protecting you. Best investment I ever made. The barista brought over refills without asking. Small town service, the kind where people remember how you take your coffee. What was Tiffany thinking? I said quietly. When they put her in that car, was she thinking about the other men she scammed? Was she planning her defense? Was she already working angles? People like her don't think like we do. They're always playing chess. Always 3 moves ahead. She's probably already contacted her attorney, already strategizing how to minimize her sentence, already considering who she can flip on to reduce her charges. She looked at me. Before they drove away. And her expression was just calculating. She was assessing whether you're a threat. Whether you know anything useful. Whether you'll be sympathetic or hostile on the stand if it goes to trial. He paused. That's how she sees people. As tools or obstacles. Not as humans. Brandon saw me that way too. Today. I was an obstacle to his new life. Today he did. Before that, I think he just stopped seeing you at all. Took you for granted. Assumed you'd always be there, stable and reliable. While he chased whatever made him feel young and important. Dad finished his coffee. The sad thing is, you were the best thing in his life. He just didn't value it. I keep replaying our marriage in my head. Trying to find the moment where it broke. Where I missed the signs. You'll drive yourself crazy doing that. People are good at hiding what they want to hide. And sometimes the signs are only obvious in hindsight. Did Mom suspect? Before the restaurant. She said she felt distance. Said Brandon seemed distracted when you'd visit together. Always on his phone. Always talking about work. She didn't think affair. She thought midlife crisis. Honestly, she was partially right. Great. I lost my husband to both a midlife crisis and a federal crime. He actually laughed. When you can joke about it, even darkly. You're going to be okay. Am I? Yes. Because you're your mother's daughter. And your grandmother's granddaughter. The women in your family don't break easily. They bend, they adapt, but they don't break. Outside, the afternoon was shifting toward evening. The coffee shop was filling up with after-work customers. Normal people with normal problems, traffic complaints, work gossip, weekend plans. I should call the hospital, I said. I left early. They'll wonder. Already handled. I called your director. Explained there was a family emergency. She said take all the time you need. You called Dr. Patterson. I've known Patricia since you started there. We've served on hospital boards together. She thinks very highly of you, by the way. Said you're one of the best pharmacists they have. Brandon said I hadn't changed. Haven't grown. Brandon is an idiot who's about to lose everything he built because he couldn't appreciate what he had. My phone vibrated again. Persistent. You should block him, Dad said. At least for tonight. Give yourself space to process without his panic contaminating your thoughts. That feels cruel. It's self-preservation. There's a difference. I pulled out my phone, still off, and looked at the dark screen. My reflection stared back. Tired eyes. Pharmacy badge still around my neck. Hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. The same person Brandon married. Maybe that was true. Maybe I hadn't changed in the ways he wanted, but I'd survived. Built a career I was good at. Stayed kind in a world that often rewarded cruelty. Remained steady when everything around me shifted. Maybe that wasn't stagnation. Maybe that was strength. I turned the phone back on long enough to block Brandon's number, then powered it off again. Better? Dad asked. Yes. He signaled for the check. Your mother's making dinner. Pot roast. You're coming home with me. We're going to eat, watch something mindless on TV, and you're going to sleep in your old room. Tomorrow we can start dealing with lawyers and statements and all the logistics. But tonight, you're just going to be someone's daughter being taken care of. I'm 38 years old, and you'll be 78 someday, and I'll still be trying to take care of you. He stood up. That's how it works. We drove to my parents' house as the sun set. The house I grew up in. Same furniture. Same photos on the walls. Same safety. Mom met us at the door. She took one look at me and pulled me into a hug without saying anything. Just held me. Dad must have called from the coffee shop. I'm okay, I said into her shoulder. I know you are. But you don't have to be. Not tonight. They fed me pot roast and mashed potatoes and green beans from my grandmother's recipe. We watched a cooking show neither of them cared about. Dad fell asleep in his recliner during the second episode. Mom covered him with a blanket. He's been running on adrenaline for weeks, she said quietly. Building that case. Coordinating with the FBI. Protecting you without you knowing. He hasn't slept well in months. He didn't tell me. Of course not. You're his daughter. He'd walk through fire before he'd let you see him struggle. I looked at him sleeping. Glasses crooked on his face. Hands folded on his chest. The man who'd spent 2 months investigating my husband. Who'd preserved my home and my options. Who'd showed up in 15 minutes when I called. I don't know if I can forgive Brandon, I said. Then don't. Forgiveness isn't mandatory. Sometimes the healthiest thing is to just let go and move forward without it. Everyone says forgiveness is important. Healing. Everyone says a lot of things. I say do what feels right for you. If forgiveness comes, fine. If it doesn't, also fine. The important thing is that you don't let his choices define your worth or your future. She walked me upstairs to my old room. Same bed. Same quilt. Same window overlooking the backyard where I used to climb trees and imagine my future. The house is mine, I said, sitting on the bed. Grandmother's trust. I didn't even know. She wanted you to have security. She grew up during the Depression. Lost everything once. She was determined her granddaughter would never face that. Dad's been the trustee all this time. Since the day she died. He takes it seriously. Manages everything properly. Sends you annual reports even though you probably never read them. I never read them. He knows. He doesn't care. He still sends them. That's who your father is. She kissed my forehead. Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be hard, but you'll face it. Because you're resilient. You always have been. After she left, I lay in the dark of my childhood room and let myself feel it. All of it. The betrayal. The shock. The strange relief of knowing I hadn't been crazy to sense distance. The gratitude for parents who'd protected me even when I didn't know I needed it. And underneath it all, something surprising, freedom. The marriage was over. Had been over for a while, probably. Brandon had just forced the ending into the open. Now I could grieve it, process it, and eventually move past it. My grandmother's house was mine. Not ours. Mine. Protected and preserved by people who loved me. I fell asleep thinking about that. About foundations that hold. About loyalty that persists. About the difference between being unchanged and being unbreakable. In the morning, Dad made pancakes. Mom poured coffee. And together, we started making calls to lawyers, to the hospital, to everyone who needed to know that I was going to be fine. Because I was. Not immediately. Not easily. But eventually, the house would remember. My grandmother's house. My house. It would remember who'd protected it. Who'd valued it. Who'd understood that some things are worth fighting for? And so would I.